The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
I'm Aislinn Green, and this is Unpacked, the podcast that unpacks one tricky topic in travel each week. And this week, we have another episode of If These Walls Could Talk, our series that explores the stories and the secrets hotels can tell us about the places we visit. Our guide for this episode is Jennifer Flowers. Jen is Afar's senior deputy editor and heads up all our hotel content. We sometimes jokingly refer to her as Afar's Eloise because both of her parents were in the hospitality industry, so she literally grew up in hotels. And Jen recently spent a long weekend at Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge, located in British Columbia. The lodge opened back in 2000, but a couple of years ago, it came under the ownership of Bailey Lodges, an Australian hospitality group that's known for its luxurious tented camps in incredible landscapes around the world. So we here at Afar consider Clayoquot one of the best hotels in Canada. It's even part of our Hotels We Love list. Because at Clayoquot, the forest is the star of the show. And Jen got to experience it all by land, sea, and air.
I'm in the cockpit of a tiny seaplane on a sunny day. To my left sits my partner, Tony. To my right, I see a white pontoon below me and sparkling water beneath it. We're about to take a 50-minute flight to Vancouver Island to spend a long weekend at Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge. It's a remote, tented camp in the temperate rainforest of Clayoquot Sound. The waters here are so rich and biodiverse that the sound here was named a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 2000. For countless generations, the area has been territory of the Ahousaht, a Nuu-Chah-Nulth First Nation, which is a broad term for First Nations on the west coast of Vancouver Island. This area is the site of some of the last stands of old-growth trees on Vancouver Island. Some of the trees I'm about to visit are more than 1,000 years old. And honestly, those trees are the reason I'm visiting. My trip is a pilgrimage of sorts. Clayoquot is famous for its luxurious tented camp experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm stoked for the glamping part. But the lodge also promises to immerse guests in the millennia-old forest and the biodiverse marine ecosystem around here. A few years ago, I fell in love with temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest, so much so that I moved from New York City to my dad's home state of Washington. I wanted to live closer to them. Pacific Northwest forests were my childhood summertime playground, my pandemic refuge. And now, they're a part of my regular walking routine at home on Ursus Island, Washington. I've heard that Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge offers the IMAX version of these landscapes. You get to see them by air, land, and sea. As we climb higher in our seaplane, heading west toward Vancouver Island, urban areas give way to hillside forests. Some forests are a multi-hued green. Others are made up of stubby trees that look like mowed grass from above, transected by brown logging roads. Then we begin to approach Clayoquot Lodge, and the peaks around us climb dramatically in height. We're whizzing by the stands of western red cedar, western hemlock, Sitka spruce, Douglas fir, and big leaf maples. We're so close to the trees that I'm almost convinced I could reach out and touch them. My heart is racing, and I can't tell whether this is because of that epic view or the gusts of wind jostling the aircraft. On our final approach, I spot the lodge's new solar field. A winding estuary hugging the property spills out into Clayoquot Sound. I can't wait to see it all up close.
My name's Sarah, I'm camp mom, and I am just thrilled to be able to have everybody here for a little visit. The weather is gorgeous, but we live in a rainforest, and you know what? If it rains, we don't care. Tears of joy. And we never know which way the weather's going to go, but it doesn't matter. You're in the house of Mother Nature.
That's Sarah Cruz, the general manager of Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge, who's greeting us at the dock. Sarah's referring to the Pacific Northwest's famous rain. They get a lot of it in these parts, so the lodge is only open between late May and late September. Today is one of the region's glorious sunny summer days. Clayoquot Sound sparkles, and the trees and moss-covered forests throw off 1,000 shades of green. Sarah immediately sets the tone for the rest of the resort. She's sincere, warm, and constantly engaged with staff and guests.
From our hearts, I just want to welcome you and say with gratitude, thank you, because you came here. And we're not easy to find. And whenever people find us, I'm like, oh my God, you did it. And you're going to jump in and have an amazing experience.
Jumping in is literally what Tony and I are about to do on our first morning at the lodge. We've signed up for a cold plunge in Clayoquot Sound. It's our first time trying out this popular wellness trend. But as we settle into our tented accommodations, getting cozy with the propane stove and impossibly soft wool throws, the thought of a daybreak immersion in 44-degree Fahrenheit waters doesn't really appeal. Yet, the next morning, we pull ourselves out of bed.
So we were just walking to a cold plunge this morning where we're going to dip our bodies into very cold water for, I don't know, health benefits maybe, somewhere here in the wilderness. So, trying to get ready for this.
We enter the lodge's heated yoga studio with 7 other guests. A staff member named Milena is waiting for us. She has us do a series of stretches while she shares information about the plunge. But before we can get too comfortable, she invites us to strip down to our swimsuits and wrap ourselves in towels. Then she leads us down to the Sound's Pebble Beach. The crisp air instantly gives me chicken skin.
All right, so towels can come off. Like I said, 2 minutes is the timestamp. You can take your hands, put them underneath your armpits. That incubates a little bit more, so that retains some of the body heat. And just witness your fight or flight response, acknowledge it, and embrace it, because it's a beautiful thing. All right. With the breath, we go in nice and slow.
I drop my towel and step into the water, starting with my ankles, and then my knees, and then my thighs. When I'm chest deep, panic begins to set in.
Oh, that's chilly, friends.
Is it over here?
My teeth chatter, and I let out an occasional groan of discomfort, echoing the sounds of people around me. And then, after about a minute, we all begin to quiet down and settle into a collective calm. Toward the very end of our 2-minute immersion, I'm even beginning to feel warm. I feel calm enough to start really observing what I'm quite literally immersed in. The idyllic beach, the evergreens fringing the shoreline, the glassy cold water that's now a source of comfort rather than pain. I'm standing in the middle of it all, neck deep, and energized for what's ahead. And I'm grateful for that shot of energy because we've got a long day ahead of us. After breakfast in the main lodge, Tony and I set off on a multi-hour hike in the Ursus Valley with head guide Mark Brophy. Mark is a 30-something Canadian. He's tall, fit, and bearded, and a bit of a badass too. He's a biologist, an adventure guide, and a thrill seeker. For example, he's climbed Canada's tallest peak, Mount Logan, and spends his winters guiding expedition cruise ships in Antarctica.
Wow, this is huge.
How awesome is that?
Oh my God. You're saying this is like, what, 320 feet or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. I'd put this one anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years. I don't know.
Oh my God.
As we walk through the valley, I'm in my element, gawking up at the towering cedars, hemlocks, big leaf maples, Sitka spruces, and Douglas firs. Mark stops us often to tell us stories of the area.
We're in Bedwell Sound up the Bedwell Valley. We'll follow the Bedwell River. Old name for the Bedwell is the Bear, actually. Bedwell was a British navigator that they renamed it after, but the old name is the Bear, right? Because there's lots of bears up here. And then we'll go a little bit up the Bedwell, then we are going to break east into the Ursus Valley. Ursus meaning?
Bear.
Bear! We're going from the Bear Valley to the Bear Valley.
This is definitely still black bear territory. We see claw marks on trees as we make our way through the forest. But Mark assures us that we aren't likely to run into any.
The bears around here, we're lucky because they're so well fed. You can imagine they go into the intertidal zone. Mm-hmm. They get their buffet twice a day.
Yeah.
And especially around full moon, new moon, they're getting those like premium buffets, really big tides, right? During the high tide, they wander out here, they eat berries. In the spring, they're eating the grasses. And then in the fall, they get the salmon, right? So they're not really interested in us, which is great.
Mark encourages us to touch the soft beds of moss that coat tree stumps like furry carpeting. I love watching my hand disappear into them. He explains that the older and newer forests here might look similar at first glance, but are really quite different.
Once we get into the Ursus, you're going to see the forest change, which is a really cool time, right? So take a look at it now. You'll see a lot of kind of like homogeneous forest, a lot of trees that are the same species, same age. A lot of them are fighting for resources, so a lot of darkness.
Mark explains that this homogeneity means it's a second growth forest. Years ago, the forests were cleared for gold mining, and they've since been replanted. Old growth forests are hard to define because there's so much variation depending on what kind of forest you're talking about. But when it comes to temperate rainforests, they're woodlands that haven't been significantly disturbed by humans for more than a century. Mark tells me old growth forests can better withstand fires than younger forests, and they can store more carbon too.
And then as we go into the Ursus, we'll hit a buffer zone, right, where things will be changeable. But then closer to the end of the trail, you're going to see a lot more diversity in the trees and the size and the species, more light coming through, a lot of understory. So it's a really cool transition from kind of modern regrowth forest into a 2,000-year-old forest.
As we continue to walk, the smaller trees of the younger forests give way to giant trees, and the forest does indeed get darker as the overstory thickens. Mark brilliantly points out the distinguishing characteristics of different tree barks so that we can identify what we're looking at. Western hemlock bark resembles fatty bacon strips, and you can't unsee that once someone points it out to you. The bark of the Sitka spruce tree looks more like potato chips or dragon scales, while Mark says that the western red cedar bark reminds him of spaghetti. It's easy to use the word untouched for places like these that haven't been significantly disrupted by humans. But untouched isn't the state of these places at all. First Nation groups like the Yahowsit have lived here for centuries, and they have used these forests sustainably without disturbing the ecosystem. For many hundreds of years, they used the forest for resources like water, food, and shade, and for cultural reasons like building shelter, canoes, clothes, and totem poles. We spot some yellow banana slugs, some of which actually look like spotty bananas. Mark explains that the Nuu-Chah-Nulth use the slug for medicine. Apparently, the slime of a banana slug has an anesthetic property.
And so if you had a toothache, right, then Nuu-Chah-Nulth would take the slug, stick it on the gums, and then that would numb the gums, numb the pain. And you let it sit there for, a little bit, not too long, and then you just take it out, put the slug back.
So he survives.
The slug's fine. Yeah. You just take a little
borrowing some slime.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Being the curious scientist I am, of course, I had to know for myself. So I put them on my tongue for 5 seconds. My tongue was numb for 5 hours.
But the trees are the real prize. As we walk, I see a cedar tree with a long and slender triangular strip of bark that's missing.
So this is a culturally modified tree, or CMT we call them. And this would go back to the Nuu-Chah-Nulth people, right? So cedar being the tree of life, you can get all your resources from it. So very important to come in the spring, take a young tree like this, like 80 years old, for example. You take a sharp shell, or of course, axe or knife or whatever, make a slit in the bark, and then after that you pull back, peel the bark back, right? And then now you've got cedar strips, right, to do so many things with.
You can weave a sleeping mat or do a looser weave basket for mushrooms to allow the spores to fall out into the forest and make more mushrooms, or make a tighter weave berry basket so you don't lose your berries, or a weave that's so tight that it can be used for waterproof clothing. Mark says that according to tribal law, trees only have to give once. A cedar that has been stripped for clothing or baskets would never be cut down for firewood or used to make a canoe. CMTs are protected by British Columbia law if they predate 1846. So if you were to harm or cut down a protected tree, you could be fined or even go to jail. But what's even more fascinating is that these culturally modified trees are also used as legal documents of land rights.
Because these trees hold these scars, right, for the rest of their life, these can actually be used as proof of place. So in determinations of land use or historical land, they can say like, well, I see this CMT. This is a 1,000-year-old tree. The scar is 900 years old. We were here 900 years ago, right? Like this is living proof of existence and use for Nuu-Chah-Nulth people, for any people.
But having a say in the use of their ancient lands hasn't come easy to the First Nations groups here. Clayoquot Sound was the site of what many call a decades-long war in the woods. In the 80s and 90s, activists that included First Nations people blockaded logging efforts in the area, leading to hundreds of arrests. Finally, in June 2024, the Ahousaht and Clayoquot First Nations and the government of British Columbia turned about 300 square miles of this forest into 10 new conservancies. The First Nations groups will manage the area with philanthropic support. The creation of these conservancies has nearly doubled the amount of old-growth forests protected in the area. The conservancies are still Crown land, but the First Nations groups can use them in ways that they feel are beneficial and sustainable. They're looking into sustainable forestry and second-growth forests, carbon credits, and even tourism similar to what's happening at Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge. Mark tells me that about a fifth of Vancouver's old-growth forests remain, and much of it falls within these new conservancies. As I stand within the forest, I take a deep breath in and smell the fresh pine, the dirt, the residual moisture from the recent rain that helps to sustain these forests, and I can't believe I have this place all to myself today. The next day, we returned to Clayoquot Sound to get a closer look by boat. We board a Canada-made 40-foot Titan with Mark, as well as Isaac Shaw, our captain, who grew up in this area. We're on the lookout for black bears, porpoises, gray whales, bald eagles, tufted puffins, and anything else we might see along the way. We plan to circumnavigate Mears Island, which is included in the protections of these new conservancies.
We're in nature, so it's not just bears here, right? There's eagles in the trees, look for the white head. Bears on the shore, look for the black bodies. And there could be harbor porpoise or other things in the water. So look everywhere all the time. Expect the unexpected.
We're looking for black bears at low tide because they like to come out to the shore to eat crab, barnacles, and other marine life. And they have their work cut out for them. It is bulking season before they go into hibernation, and the spawning salmon they like to eat in the rivers haven't arrived yet. But these bears can weigh as much as 600 pounds, so they need to eat as many as 15,000 to 30,000 calories a day. Soon, we see our first bear on the shoreline, and Isaac slows down so we can get a closer look.
Good spotting, bear right in front of us. So folks, let's go out on the front deck here on the bow. We'll get good looks. And let's just remember when we're bear viewing, they have amazing hearing. So let's be quiet, let's be calm, enjoy the bear, and let Isaac do all the work.
And there it is, a beautiful black bear, coat shining in the sun. He's busily turning over large rocks with an impressive ease, looking for his next meal of crab. Turns out, black bears like Dungeness crab as much as humans do.
And you could see him crunching, right? You could see the and the tongue going, right? So there could be crabs. There's lots of green crabs, little guys in there. We'll see them sometimes getting the Dungeness, which are the big orange ones. Sometimes you'll get them with a mouthful of crab and then the arms out, just like trying to pinch him, right? But the bear's chomping away on him. It's awesome.
I feel heartened that Mark and Isaac, and so many guides here at Clayoquot, are focused on making the smallest impact possible on nature as we observe it all.
That was a beautiful encounter too, right? Like that is the dream. For us to show up with a bear doing its thing, watch it and leave, and it's still doing exactly what it was doing, right? So, amazing job by Captain Isaac to get us close enough to get that experience, but not to invade on his private space. I might be a bear in there, actually. Oh no, just a rock.
Not too long after that, we're looking for more charismatic megafauna, this time gray whales.
You can see nice big horseshoe sandy bay, quite shallow in here. Great spot for the gray whales. They both filter feed through the water column, but they also get in the shallows right along here. They'll just drag their face along the bottom, just taking in all kinds of mock and crab eggs, whatever critters are in there. And just like any other baleen whale, they'll stick their tongue up, flush the mud or the water out.
I love that Isaac knows the name of the whales by sight. One of them is Orange Crush, who was first spotted in Clayoquot Sound in 1977. I can sense excitement in his voice when we reach Clayoquot Island, a popular spot for many species of marine life ranging from birds to seals. It's so ecologically important that you need a research permit to make landfall on the small rocky isle. Isaac points out a kelp forest that surrounds the island. He explains that these forests are just as ancient and important as the ones on land. They sustain countless lives, including vulnerable creatures like small fish, crab eggs, and sea urchin. All of a sudden, Isaac wants us to taste the bull kelp. He reaches into the water and snips off a small piece of one of the long, slender stems with a knife.
You guys ever tried bull kelp before? They're broken.
You want to do the honors?
That's amazing.
Touch, taste, and feel kind of trip. Juicy goodness.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Anyone else want to try?
I'll try.
Sure. It's nice. It's like salty and like umami.
Crunchy.
Pre-salted.
A little umami action.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cucumber.
As we snack on our kelp, Isaac says that every summer his family does a big bull kelp harvest. They pickle and can them for the winter.
Yeah, a little sugar.
Yeah, fastest growing plant on the planet, basically.
Wow.
You can also cut that off, and when this is longer, and it works like a beer bong, right?
That's what growing up in this area teaches you.
That's right.
Winters in Ucluelet.
I came here for the forests, but realize I'm falling in love with the coastal ocean biome too, the one that's so interconnected with the trees I love so dearly. When we're boating around, I learned that when spawning salmon in the Bedwell River die, they become nutrients that feed the trees. That's a big reason why coastal trees here grow so much bigger than the inland ones. From that point on, I realized that everything here is living in harmony together. That includes all the people, staff and guests alike, who have come all this way to marvel at it all. After some time on the ground, I'm eager to zoom out and see the big picture again. One afternoon, Tony, Mark, and I have a date with Doug Gamage, the lodge's helicopter pilot in the forest. We're sunning ourselves by the Bedwell River after lunch and an icy dip, and we hear his helicopter before we see it. Not long after, the chopper descends onto the rocky riverbank. Soon we're in the air, zooming over, around, and next to craggy tree-covered peaks, spotting the deep blue glacial lakes along the way. I've been in helicopters before, but whenever we pass a mountain peak and then watch the land drop beneath us, my palms sweat a little. About 15 minutes later, Doug lands below the summit of Ursus Mountain on a small plateau and leaves to pick up other guests at nearby sea caves. Tony and I climb out, and Mark is soon leading the way to the summit of Ursus Mountain. We scramble awkwardly along the rocky landscape as we climb in altitude, following a much more agile Mark, eating alpine blueberries along the way. A sweaty 30 or so minutes later, we reach the top, and I cling to a rock as I take in the 360-degree views of the area. Mark, who is wearing rubber boots, seems to be in his element as he scrambles over to another rock to set up a drone.
So, Tony, we are at the top of Mount Ursus. How are you feeling about it?
Feeling pretty good.
Yeah? Feeling excited that our helicopter's behind us. Our guide is climbing around the rocks like a monkey.
Catching drones.
And then there's a beautiful lake down there where the helicopter just was. And it's a little vertiginous. I'm not going to lie.
We return to our plateau-turned-helipad, and Mark sets up a table and chairs for us and pours us ice-cold margaritas. He brings out a lavish charcuterie spread, and the three of us talk, sip, and eat while we wait for Doug. And let me tell you, a helicopter ride in the mountains before a margarita versus after a margarita are two entirely different experiences. As you can imagine, the liquid courage takes away some of your inhibitions and your self-editing.
Does this ever get, normal or boring? Does it ever get normal? Is this normal? Oh my God!
Doug's answer is to start climbing fast toward the big blue sky above us before making a stomach-turning pivot back down toward the riverbed. Moves like this are safe, and they're all in a day's work for a pilot like Doug, who has been flying here for decades. For a helicopter novice like me, it's one of the most thrilling experiences of my life, and I'm glad the margaritas have taken the edge off. Doug is a bit of a legend in these parts, so a couple of days after our helicopter adventures, I track him down at his helipad for a chat. He sets up a couple of chairs for us in the shade of a tree nearby. Doug was born in Ontario and worked as a pilot for many years. He flew planes for the mining industry and in the 80s landed in British Columbia, where he has been working for the lodge since 2012. As we get to talking, he tells me he had the chance to buy a 160-acre plot of land where Clayoquot Lodge now sits and homestead it. But Doug and his wife were raising kids at the time, and getting them to school in Tofino would have been a challenge. And the lodge's first owner, Vancouver businessman Richard Genovese, who was dreaming of building a nature lodge here, paid a bit more.
It's always neat to daydream, well, if we had bought this, there'd just be a house sitting over here and a couple boats at a dock. And would the bedwell have been saved?
Doug also explains the nuances of conservation here in these old-growth forests.
It comes down to, there's three main questions that, nobody seems to answer, at least for me. What is old growth? Where is it? And whose is it?
As we continue to talk, the answers seem both simple and complicated all at once to me. But what's clear is that Doug, who calls himself a pragmatic conservationist, is happiest when he's exploring these forests, both on land and in the sky.
Well, I'm a really avid gardener. I spend a lot of time to get a carrot that big to grow. And then you look at these things, and they got these tiny little root wads, and the ground is lousy. And look at the growth out of them. That's just such a head scratch. That whole hillside. There's so many great trees on it, and the dirt is minuscule. To me, I find that's just, as a gardener, you compost, you can do all this right stuff, and I got a radish. Wow, look, gosh. I got a tomato now. And then you see these trees growing like this.
And then we drift back to our mutual love of the ancient stands, and we get to talking about the spiritual side of being surrounded by all this beauty.
I think it's called pantheism. So I see as much God in that sapling there as I do in the helicopter or that big tree or you. So I think basically everything has some sort of subatomic divinity.
One of the things I love most about Clayoquot is the collective awe we're all sharing. I feel it in the helicopter, and while we're swapping stories with staff and other guests in the dining room, the staff seem truly happy to be here, and many make a point to return to the lodge every summer. Later that afternoon, Tony and I are preparing to board our flight back to the city of Vancouver. The sun is shining, illuminating the water and the green landscape like it did on the day we arrived. I think of those long walks in the cool shade of the old-growth forests, the helicopter swooping over blue alpine lakes, even the energy I felt from that invigorating espresso shot-like dip in the cold waters of the Sound. And I'm finding it hard to leave.
I'm about to leave Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge, and I've been here 3 nights. I'm hearing the planes come in and out. There are guests leaving today, and it is a beautiful, stunning day. There are evergreens just shining in the sunshine, and it is pretty hard to break away from this place. It's going to stay with me for quite a long time.
And that was Jen Flowers. We'll link to her social media handles where she shared some phenomenal photos of her trip, and we'll link to Clayoquot Wilderness Lodge, which is now accepting bookings for May 2025. And in the show notes, you can also find a link to our Hotels We Love list. Next week, we'll be back with tips on how to experience Paris like a local, from longtime resident Lindsay Tremuta.
They don't expect you to speak French or be able to put together a sentence necessarily, but you really do need to start with sort of the niceties. And those are quite easy to master. Bonjour, ça va? But it's important because they take great pride in certain exchanges, particularly when you go into a shop, a restaurant, and if you're going to ask a question, you don't launch into something. You have to start by greeting them. You say, bonjour, yes, I have a question, est-ce que, blah, 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 and the sort of tension comes when someone thinks they can, because it works in their country, they can just sort of, with a smile, start asking a question without having said hello first. And that seems like maybe a superfluous step, but for them, it's very important.
Ready for more unpacking? Visit afar.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram and X. We are at Afar Media. If you enjoyed today's exploration, I hope you'll come back for more great stories. Subscribing always makes that easy. And be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast platforms. It helps other travelers find it. And if you ever want to ask a question or suggest a topic for coverage, you can reach out to us at afar.com/feedback or email us at unpacked@afar.com. This has been Unpacked, a production of Afar Media. The podcast is produced by Aislinn Green and Nikki Galteland. Music composition by Chris Collin. And remember, the world is complicated. We're here to help you unpack it.